Well, I just wanted to say, hello everybody, it's Foxy speaking. Well, I just wanted to say, sorry for repeating myself, that on the 25th of November 2020, what would have also been, not only was it Kilburn Day that very day, it would have also been Fransman Day. Happy belated Fransman Day, everybody. Oh dear. No, because the birth date, Fransman Day, the 25th of November 2020, and it will be happening every single year. Fransman Day on the 25th of November every single year. And that goes to a special man who was Harry Fransman, Harry Albert Fransman, who used to be Britain's oldest man following the death of Robert Grant Pitts Weighton, who was again a centenarian. Well, so he actually lived to be 112, actually, Robert Weighton, 1908 to 2020, Robert Grant Pitts Weighton. And Harry Fransman, who's a Belgian, he was born in Belgium on the 25th of November 1911. And he was Belgian, but he's from Belgium, but he spent most of his adult life living in South Africa, where he was living abroad as a businessman until he and his wife followed his daughters to England in 1987 when he was 75, nearly 76. So, ouch, sorry, it's a bit itchy, sorry. And, yes, a former businessman and also a former cruise enthusiast, Harry Fransman was, just to say. I mean, he was formerly Britain's oldest man from the 28th of May, 2020, until very, very sadly his own death, which was on the 25th of September 2020, exactly 2 months before his 109th birthday. I mean, I was hoping he'd live to be 110 at least. If you'd seen a picture of him, say, on his very last birthday, and certainly 2 years before he died, and so, I would have thought he'd go on to about probably 111, 112. Oh. No, but a lot of people, very, very few people live to be 110 and beyond on the sad matter, but you really cannot live forever, because to tell you something, speaking of age, and certainly very, very old age, with old age it eventually gets to a point where you've lived for too long and basically you've just had enough, because things give way as you get older for many people. And when the more things that begin to give way, the more it comes to a point where you've just basically had enough of life and had enough of living. It happens, you'd find that with a lot of old people. Speaking of that, when things give way and it comes to a point where you've just had enough, it's what you call their age has become a burden to them, and they've suddenly realised they've lived too long for some, actually, to make it a truthful matter. You do find that with a lot of older people. It's certainly not an unusual thing to happen, especially people in their hundreds, for some, not to mention. He died peacefully in his sleep, though. Yes, the former businessman and cruise enthusiast Harry Fransman went in his sleep. Still was very sad, but at least he didn't go in hospital or anything. He died in the residential home he lived in the latter of his life. Yes, which one of the impressive things was in his retirement he took regular cruises every single year from in his late 70s to escape the harsh English winters, and probably in other times, until he was well into his 90s, still going on the cruises from his late 70s until he was well into his 90s, quite surprisingly, and also most impressively, not to mention. And yes, and But very sadly, after his wife died, because he was married, if you didn't know, to an English lady, Helen. After his wife Helen sadly died, which was in 2011, who presumably in her 90s when she died. She died sometime before his 100th birthday. He continued living alone. He continued living alone and walking unaided until he fell over, which resulted in sustaining injuries in his hips, requiring hip operations. But sadly, after his operations, he couldn't live in his own flat anymore. He had to go to the residential home. But guess what? Despite his hip operations and having to move into a residential care home, he still took walks every single day to stretch his legs. Even into his last days, he was still taking walks every day and still at 108 he was reportedly taking walks every day, which he said was to help stretch his legs, despite his hip operation. So he really was one impressive centenarian, Harry Fransman was. And you'd never believe he was actually a centenarian, to be honest with you. No, if you'd seen him when he was, say, 107, I thought he looked about 84, to be honest with you, in my honest opinion. I remembered sending a photo of Harry Fransman to my mother at once. I sent her a photograph, and she was like, he looks like 75 instead of 107. I was like, no, I think he looks older than that, but that's okay. You might think differently to me as well. Personally, I thought he looked in about 84, early 80s, when he was 107. But, and certainly before he died, he still looked about the same age, in my opinion, about 84 when he turned 108. No, but he was quite a good-looking man, to be honest with you, despite being over 100. He must have been handsome when he was younger. Oh. I think with many men who were very, very handsome in their younger days, many generally tend to stay very, very good-looking into old age, like Harry Fransman, for example, or Robert Grant Pitts Weighton, or Joseph Batty Pearson, you know. But, not to get too much off the subject, but thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'll show you some photos of Harry Fransman before the video ends, and please let me know what you thought of the videos and what you thought of the Harry Fransman photographs, if you saw any of them, or if you do see them at the very end of the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye, everybody. From your friend Foxy.